Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We begin in the name of Allah. My name is Abdullah Muslim, and I'm the host of Islam Works. You know, humanity has a history that extends, we don't know how long ago. You know, some people say 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, 50 million. And each generation has received a prophet. Allah has said in Quran that there is no society, every society of people, whatever continent we may be on, has received a prophet, someone to have warned them against evil that had come into their culture, and something that prevented them from serving God, something that prevented them from doing the things that God has says is necessary for us to receive the reward of the hereafter. And one of the things that's spoken of in Quran, I'm not going to read it today, but maybe in the future, inshallah, time permitting, I will. But there are more than 7 places, but there's 7 major ayats, or 7 groups of ayats in which Shaitan, the devil, is spoken of in Quran, and wherein he has, we as Christians were always taught that the devil was a fallen angel. In Islam, we're not taught that. In the Islam, it's made clear to us that there are 3 creations, one being the angels. The angels are made from light. The other is the jinn. And the jinn are made from fire, free of smoke. And the third are the human beings, us. And we're made from clay. And when Allah, or God, or Dios, or Yahweh, or whatever name or whatever language you call God, told the other creations, the angels and the jinn, to submit to Adam, the angels, like I said, I'm not going to read it. I really must speak more quickly because of time limitations. The angels submitted. There's a little more to it than that. And like I said, maybe in the future I'll read to you from Quran, or the Tafsir Quran, so you'll understand what I'm talking about. And the jinn refused. At least the certain ones amongst the jinn refused. And when God says, what's wrong with you that you're not going to do what I told you to do? The answer was, I'm made out of fire. He's made out of clay. Sounds something like what's going on in the world today. I'm white, he's black. I'm black, he's white. I'm yellow, he's red. I'm red, he's whatever. This is like a idea, something that gives us an understanding of how we have incorporated the behavior of Satan into our own behavior. And one of the things that occurred is that he also told God that he would corrupt us. He would corrupt the children of Adam. He would lay for us on the straight way, in other words, the way of religion. That he would attack us from the left and attack us from the right. He would attack us from the front and the rear. He would make evil fair-seeming to us. And God would see. He says, you'll see. They're not going to be grateful. God says, and I will fill hell with you all, except for my righteous servants. Now, I'm going to just add one more part to it. And that is that there's an ayat in Quran. There's more than one. But this particular one I thought would be helpful in setting us up for part of what we're talking about today as to how we interact with other people. Because see, this is the knowledge that Islam gives you. This is the information that Islam brings you into so that you understand how to move in the world in which you live in today and how to avoid the traps. But if you deny it, if you say, oh, it's no such thing, and you fall right into it, and you become a part of it, And once you become a part of it, then what purpose do you serve? You're just part of the problem and not part of the solution. And Islam gives the solution. This is Surah 2, Baqarah, and this is Ayat 101 and 102. And when there came to them a messenger from Allah, talking about communities of believers in the past, confirming what was with them, a party of the people of the book, talking about past communities who had received prophets but who had gone astray. I won't say any particular community of people, even though it is a reference to a particular people. Okay? They threw away the book of Allah behind their backs. In other words, they hid it, as if it had been something they did not know. In other words, they had gotten so much into the dunya, into the life of this world, that they had decided that, well, things here are far more attractive than anything that we're promised to come, because we can see what's here and now. And everything else that comes after, well, that's pure speculation. Allah's words are not speculation. They followed what the Satans, the devils, had recited over Solomon's kingdom. Solomon did not disbelieve, but the Satans disbelieved, the devils, teaching men magic, you see, illusions, and such things as came down from Babylon to the angels Harut and Marut. But neither of these taught anyone such things without saying, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, forgive me. We always begin reading the Quran by asking Allah to protect us from Satan, the accursed and rejected. Without saying, we are only for trial. So do not blaspheme. They learned from them the means to sow discord between man and wife. Look how many divorces occur in the world today. This is like an ongoing situation in our world societies, worldwide. It's spreading, okay? But they could not thus harm anyone except by Allah's permission. And they learned what harmed them not. They learned what harmed them, not what profited them. And they knew that the buyers of magic would have no share in the happiness of the hereafter. And vile was the price for which they did sell their souls, if only they knew. In the world in which we live today, there are many things that give the wrong impressions, or that we think that we're watching and we're being entertained. We're being entertained by sitting down and watching a movie wherein people are killed. One man will kill 5, 10, 15, 20 people. He goes out with a machine gun. He mows them down. They got children that are doing evil things. They got people selling drugs. And they make it seem something that's agreeable, because you have a good drug dealer and a bad drug dealer. And the good drug dealer steals from the bad drug dealers, and he takes the money, and he goes off and lives happily ever after. We're in a world where we can make our own illusions, and we have to be very careful about this, because most of the illusions that we make are bad. We make illusions about the future, where everything is drab and dismal, and we don't do anything to show people how to live an honorable life in the time frame that we're here. We're all here in different time frames. And in doing so, most people are convinced, have become convinced, that there's no such thing as God. They're called atheists. And with that, that means there's no such thing as angels. There's no such thing as the devil. Okay? There's no such thing as good or bad. I do what I want to do. I don't want to wear a mask. I don't wear a mask. I don't want to, I want to go out and kill people. I mean, what time in history can we read and find that there was such a thing as serial killers? Think about that idea. And it spread. Now you got serial killers in Russia. Just last week, they had some guy in Norway shooting people with bows and arrows. Killed 5 people in his society. And it goes on and on and on. So, I thought that it would be a good idea for us to kind of discuss some of the things that have been set in front of us that give us the wrong understanding of how we as human beings could interact with the things that are going on around us, and how Islam shows you how to avoid these traps and these snares. We have our brother. He's not an expert. He's a father like I am, okay? But our brother Safwan, all right, has had some experience in talking to people who were more intimately involved in what they call the black arts. Am I right about this or wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, as I have also. And maybe some of the things that we'll say will help you to understand what's going on around you. So Brother Safwan, from Brooklyn, New York, okay, eventually New Jersey, okay. Your experience with the person who's involved in what we call sihr, is that the right word?
Sihr.
Sihr,
Yes.
all right, meaning witchcraft.
Witchcraft.
Okay.
Yes.
Meaning, let me make a point here. There's a difference between witchcraft and Satanism, and I'll talk about that later on in our conversation.
Well, I would say some years ago now, I was living in upstate New York, and I came across a store which was the main store of that particular town. It was the busiest store. They sold a lot of essential oils.
Like a general store?
It wasn't a food store.
Okay.
But they, clothing, T-shirts, gifts.
Okay.
Essential oils and fragrances and
like
like
what
that.
they call a store, not notary. There's just a name for it. Inshallah, when it comes to me, I'll blurt it out.
All right, so it was the main store of the town.
Okay.
And the biggest, the largest.
But they didn't sell food.
No, it was more like a convenient. The town itself was a very small town. The tallest building in that town was 4 stories high, and it happened to be the hospital of that town. We were in an area called North Country, what is generally known as North Country, Watertown, New York.
Okay.
So I came across the store. In the stores, in the front display of the store outside, they had on display a witch's costume. It was about July, August.
So it wasn't even near Halloween.
No. That's how I found out that it was a witch's store. And so, I had one day I'd gone in and I interviewed the owner of the store. She was the town witch. And, I asked her some questions about her belief as a Muslim. I introduced myself. I told her I was a Muslim and what Muslims believe. And I wanted to know a little more about what they believed. And she said, sure, no problem. And so from the things that I asked her about her belief, they said, well, we don't believe in good or bad, and that everyone can make their own decisions. Whatever you feel is good, then it's good. If you feel it's bad, then it's bad. And a side note from that, I later found out that that's also the belief of democracy. That's the creed of democracy. Whatever you believe is correct, then you can't force your belief on someone else. All right? You can't force your belief on someone else. If you don't think it's good, then that's your opinion. All right? If you think it's bad, then that's your opinion. So it wasn't until after I heard the lady's explanation of what they believe, and she was a witch.
She said she was a witch.
Yes.
That's what she said.
Well, when it came to the part of the name, the title witch, I explained to her that I had seen a book called The Wicca Book of Spells.
Okay.
And at that time when I had seen this book, a young lady was reading the book. I was on a city bus, and we were, riding the bus, and I saw the book, and at first I wanted to double check. So, and I saw Wicca, Book of Spells. I didn't know what the word Wicca meant at that time.
Okay.
And so I asked, could I see the book? And she said, sure, and she showed me the book. And I looked into the book and saw spells, how to cast spells. The whole thing.
In my instance, in my case, the person that I briefly interacted with told me he was a warlock. All right, but go ahead.
Right. Okay.
And, a warlock being a male witch.
A male witch. Okay, and so I asked the lady that I was interviewing that I had seen this book of spells, and so I wanted to know what's the actual title, what's their actual title, or what their actual title is. And she said, and I asked them, is it witch or Wicca or Wiccans? And they said, she said, we're called Wiccans. All right, and I said, what's the difference between a Wiccan and a witch? And she told me that a Wiccan is the actual title, and a witch is she told me that that's a name given to them by the Christians, the word witch. I asked her about the flying, the riding on the brooms. She said they gallop on their brooms toward their places of worship. And that it's the Christians who said that they fly on the brooms.
Now, it sounds like something out of Harry Potter.
Well, Harry Potter is a young witch. It's about a young man who's a witch, and his teacher was a witch. Okay.
But it's also supposedly a fictional book.
Probably by a witch.
Okay.
Okay. It's actually a Dawa book.
Dawa from their perspective.
From their perspective, as they give Dawa to the world, they have in there spells.
Okay.
That if you said any one of the spells in the book, then that's their way of tricking the people into casting spells on themselves, calling on jinns in their own homes, and the likes. Okay.
This is it's interesting from the perspective that, oftentimes you hear people talking about selling their souls to get ahead, all right, to gain something, all right. And you hear, I have a story to tell. Inshallah, it'll be brief, but I don't have time right now, all right, that will give support to what you're saying, but from another perspective, okay. So if you don't mind, we'll continue in another episode, okay? And we'll go with that, okay? All right. So right now, in the world in which we live, the Quran tells us about devils. It tells us about jinn. It tells us about ifrits, which is what Iblis being the a highborn or even the head of the jinn, all right, who influence our everyday affairs. I'll read another ayat, or a verse from Quran to you, that talks about the one of the influences that the jinn have, that those of us who don't understand them, who don't believe in them, and who don't understand the value of making dua, of making prayers to God and asking God to help us. God, help me. God, turn this evil away from me and bless me with a good qadr, with a good outcome. Oh God, please, bless me to get away from this hard thing that's causing me difficulties in my life. All people who believe in God pray to God, okay? Even amongst the people who call themselves Jews, all right? And I say call themselves because this is not a name that was given to them in their holy books, in the Torah, all right? They have a thing called the Kabbalah, but that's another story. But all of this ties in, inshallah, and you'll see how Islam works to keep you away from the difficulties that these things can cause. Until the next time, peace be unto you.